Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second panel for today called Building a Strong Ecosystem for FinTech. How can Cyprus and other countries in the region foster a vibrant ecosystem for FinTech and startups, including access to capital, mentorship, and networking opportunities? For that, I would like to call on stage Mr. Tannousis, CEO of Cyprus Invest, Mr. Alexey Gubarev, co-founder and member of the board of directors of TechIsland and co-founder of Palta, Mr. Nasir Zubairi, CEO of LHoFT Foundation, Mr. Nikolas, Xenofontos, managing director of Cyprus Funds, and Mr. Yuriy, Romanyukha, CEO of ICLUB Global. Hello. So, gentlemen, it's such a pleasure to have you all with us. Just for putting a context into discussion in general, let's start by saying that we all know that the four key design elements necessary for FinTech ecosystems to flourish are the business environment, access to markets, government, the regulatory support, access to human and financial capital, and of course, financial expertise. Luckily for us today, we have with us the experts in each and every of these fields. So let's dive in. So allow me first to start by asking, what opportunities does the FinTech ecosystem create for startups? Like, what do you believe that an ecosystem could actually give to a startup?
Shall I take this one? So, I mean, a startup in itself needs an environment to grow. So it needs government incentives to support it to establish itself and then to be in a position to take some advantages, because startups fail for a reason. Number one is the cost. Number two is the team. Then you need, because of the team, you need a lot of talent, different disciplines, different skills required. Some of them are hard skills, some of them are soft skills. And the third thing might be just where I come in. And if you're touching upon offering anything that is regulated, you need a regulatory framework that doesn't have a big barrier of entry, and you can navigate through.
Thank you.
Startups, you know, like the most important for startups are actually the people. I speak my experience because this is what I'm doing, like, investing in startups, and without good people, nothing is happening, and the team is the most important things. Because in our history, where we invest in the different companies, even during the startup life, sometimes they change the approach what they are doing. But it's possible to do a change approach and found a new direction, a new business model. Only people is capable to do this. But if people is not good enough, if founders not good enough, this is an issue. But what is the good signals here now, like in Cyprus, especially during the last few years, amount of good people grow significantly, and this is really good signal for the coming startup industry, because you can find founders and people on the local market.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, yes, that's a great question that can easily elaborate it, because as ICLUB, we are actively, yeah.
I'm sorry, just a second. We are hearing a sound. Can you please? Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, with ICLUB, we actively investing continuously. For now, we don't have any investments in Cyprus-based startups, like, you know, that founded by startup founders from Cyprus. We have startups from Greece in our portfolio, and that's what we are proud of. But if we're talking about Cyprus specifically, I think that's underdog about the ecosystem. That's what mentioned Alexey. There is plenty of great founders and examples of people that build the companies and international stories. And of course, if we're talking about ecosystem, it's a question how local founders can cooperate with this kind of experience. That's the first one, and maybe also giving the answer how they can make it happen. Of course, there is plenty of great projects like Cyprus Ecosystem Map, where they can track all the companies that have a great performance and based in Cyprus, finally. That's already been live. Another part, of course, it's all the initiative that's coming from the TechIsland, because if we are talking about the growth perspective, we need to start to collaborate mostly with the founder that has great traction results and know how to build international story, not only Cyprus-based and local-based traction.
Sure.
Thank you. I would definitely agree with what was said before, especially the people. The first thing is the people, the persons, the team, the group that is putting these ideas down, And second, more important, I would say, is the environment. The environment meaning the access to funding and financing, because you might have the best brains, you might have the best ideas, but if you don't have the funding to develop these ideas into projects, then nothing will happen. And then, in addition to that, you will need the policies that will enable it to grow into a company, into a unicorn. So I will start from the people, number one, funding number two, policies and environment number three.
I will shed maybe a slightly different perspective. With Luxembourg, we developed an ecosystem from scratch where 5, 6 years ago, when we set up the LHoFT, there was maybe 10 fintech companies we would classify. We now have over 300. Strategically, the way we built that ecosystem has been to look at the strengths that Luxembourg offers in terms of customers, capital, and the types of particular, I guess, competitive advantages Luxembourg has. We started, given that Luxembourg is a very small country, 600,000 people, we obviously organically there is going to be just statistically a lower proportion of organic founders taking risks to set up businesses. So strategically where we focused was attracting businesses from abroad to set up their EU hubs in Luxembourg, which coincided, unfortunately, with Brexit. So, and Luxembourg being very fluent in English, obviously was one of the strengths that we could offer, and firms chose to set up in Luxembourg. But critically, what those firms then looked for, most importantly, was capital and customers. So we obviously have a very large local customer base. We focused on attracting firms within a particular niche that catered for that customer base, given that Luxembourg's fund industry, which is the second largest in the world with 5.5 trillion assets under management, is mainly a middle and back office, and a lot of the focus is around compliance. We've developed over the years the largest center for RegTech type firms, so any firms looking at compliance, because we've provided access to the customer base on a localized basis, and following that, usually the capital flows from the venture capital arm as well as government subsidies, and that in turn has then spurred the organic development of people taking risks, leaving their jobs, being excited, and setting up their local startups within Luxembourg. But critically, our focus from a hub that we have is to focus on 3 core strategic pillars. Most importantly is connectivity. So we act as the center of the wheel, connecting all the different stakeholders within the ecosystem, both domestically and internationally. We work a lot with various other hubs around the world. Then focusing on knowledge and training and education, both for the customer market, educating them about the types of products, solutions, trends that are available within fintech. Obviously, at the moment, AI is obviously the key thing, so we're doing a lot of training for the finance sector on AI, but also educating startup founders based upon the experiences and knowledge of other entrepreneurs and their successes, how to build their businesses. Every startup makes mistakes, but hopefully if you can minimize and manage those and mitigate those risks that a business face, you have a higher chance of success. And then finally, we focus on projects. So we enable several different large-scale projects within Luxembourg that help to bring together interested entrepreneurs and startups to function and almost to some degree give them customers on a plate from that perspective.
That's quite interesting because we're talking about increased profit in terms of connectivity. We're talking about like, especially in the very early stages, whereas a startup can actually fail in the first 2 years. You have something like a support system. So what you have built, it's like a 360 support system for startups, which is one of the basic reasons to actually participate in an ecosystem, which is, it's a very good example. Thank you for that. I would like now to ask Alexey, reason being that he's a co-founder and BOD member of TechIsland. So, Alexey, you've been in Cyprus for quite long and you have taken many initiatives here. So, based on your experience, what fundamental changes do you think that Cyprus needs in order to attract more fintech and IT companies? And Marios, don't get offended, I'll come to you soon. We'll come to the opposite side soon enough. So, but let's hear it from Alexey.
Well, you know, when we create TechIsland, we have a vision about Cyprus to make IT hub. And we did a lot of initiatives before even that, like to promote Cyprus personally, like some companies, because my vision always was that the companies who is here is actually the best ambassadors to bring more companies. And the TechIsland actually is a community of ambassadors of Cyprus who is promoting Cyprus as IT hub. And it was done already a huge job to promote Cyprus and prepare vision in November 2021 with the Nikolas studies. Was a big presentation about the Cyprus vision about how it can become a future IT hub. And some initiatives already took place. One of them is a 50% discount on the salary above 55,000 euro. It's already passed legislation 14th of July 2022. And if you check the changes during the last 2 years, it's dramatical because in 2020, Cyprus GDP was contributing 8.5% only IT. And 2020 is almost 13. We have almost double growth of contribution to GDP by this sector, which is amazing achievement, and it can be done much more. Like, and if we speak about what can be done, one is a very important thing is to finish the program which was announced before, and to finish naturalization legislation for the specialist who is coming to here. And why it should be really done, because it's one thing to bring people here, but another point is about how to keep them here. And for many third country nationalities, like to stay here and eventually become citizens of the country is very important. And we are fighting with this with many other countries, like Germany. They actually 2 weeks ago changed their legislation to make much more favorable for high quality specialists to receive the local passport and become part of the community. And basically, like all these countries, they are fighting to get the specialists. And Cyprus also do the same job. They're not Cyprus just stay alone. Like they have to compete with all other countries, like Finland, Portugal, Germany, Netherlands, Ireland, even Greece now. Like if you speak about Greece, actually Greece, to attract some big companies, they change a legislation about stock options to make much favorable tax discount on the stock options, because stock options is not the thing which is actually common for the normal business, but it's very useful in the startups. And why I know? Because I'm issuing stock options myself every month to my employees. Like one of our companies, 850 people, like who is getting stock options. Like, And for us, such discount is quite interesting, like this is what we suggest as well, like to future steps to look at about make favorable discount on the stock options to attract big companies. This is, in my opinion, extremely important. And second one should be much better communication between government and the private sector. Much more open, much more often about what's happening, what's the problems, what's the issues. And this is actually start going well, like especially if you compare like a few years before, but I believe it should be much bigger improvement. And another thing which is extremely important, as per my opinion, is digitalization of the process of the government. We have huge delay in Cyprus for that. We have to stop using paperwork to apply for the resident permits. Like we have to stop even going to the immigration if you need to renew permit if you work in the same company for the last 5-7 years. Why you have to do this? You have to just apply and get it automatically. A lot of things should be improved, not on the legislation side, but about practical side, how it works. And it should be a really big job to be done on this sector.
Thank you so much. Marius, I'll come to you because I want to keep what needs to be done. I want to hear from Nasir, like based on also what has been expressed right now. What is happening to Luxembourg in terms of, I mean, we do know that the major participants in a fintech ecosystem, as already discussed, is governments, entrepreneurs, FIIs, etc. So what is happening in order to promote a more effective collaboration between startups and these participants? What's the case in Luxembourg?
I mean, it helps that we are a small country. All decision makers, be it at the potential customers, the various financial institutions, but also at government level, at venture capital level, they're very easily accessible, right? Plus there is massive strategic alignment. Startup Nation is a government policy. My chairman is the Minister of Finance. I speak to her every day. We work very closely with the Minister of Economy and all of his team. Anyone can speak to these people. The fact I told you the story outside when we were aware that Revolut was hunting for a license in Luxembourg, we very quickly, I've got the Prime Minister on the phone inviting them to his residence and to his barbecue because he wants to entertain them to convince them to move to Luxembourg. So these elements help that everyone is aligned and accessible, and there is a policy of wanting to build that sector. Now, part of the reason, particularly in fintech, why they want to build that sector, because ultimately it supports the core industry, which is financial services. Finance accounts for 40% of GDP in Luxembourg, right? And we can't let that sector die. And in order to ensure its future competitiveness, which is the way we frame our mission, the future competitiveness of Luxembourg's finance sector, we need to bring in the technology companies in order to support them, to help them develop and remain competitive going forward, to help them reduce costs, and to navigate the sea of new opportunities that are arising. So that cohesiveness between government and the private sector is key. The government is in constant dialogue with the private sector. One key thing which I was made aware of very, very early on, and you see this unilaterally across all ministers in government, is they very specifically, they look at the residents of Luxembourg as their customer, which is a very subtle strategic framing, but makes a huge difference. They're not their shareholders, of course they are the shareholders in the government, but they treat the people and the businesses of Luxembourg as their customer, looking to make them happy and looking to make international business happy as well. And that strategic framing, I think, adds a lot of value because they're constantly listening to the private sector to make things better. I mean, the things that you've just talked about, stock options and all of this stuff, none of that exists in Luxembourg, right? These are nice to haves. The first thing we did was build a conducive environment to give access to the customers and to get access to capital. And, you know, people think of Luxembourg as a tax haven, whatever. Corporation tax is one of the highest in Europe. Income tax is just above average compared to other countries. We have the highest salaries in the world, except for Qatar. The average salary in the UK, in Luxembourg, is above 60,000 euros. So staff and people are not cheap, particularly for startups. We have no stock options plan. You get taxed as a wealth tax on your stock options as soon as they're granted, so not particularly conducive. But yet, we have a huge startup sector. We have the highest ratio of startups to people, double that of any other country in the EU, right?
Thank you so much.
So none of these things are nice to haves. You need to first formulate the core.
Thank you. So I'm listening here. I've heard what a person that has actually been in the industry, the startup industry, here said. I'm listening to what a person from a European hub has said. So Marios, I'll come to you now. So we have heard about effective systems, accessibility, digitalization. We've heard about direct access to decision makers. In 2 minutes, I would like you to describe what are the tools that fintechs here in Cyprus could actually utilize to benefit in Cyprus and in the region. I mean, you've heard what Nasir said. Do you think we have that right now? How do you think this can be implemented? What's your position on that?
Yes, I think, first of all, it's very important for the government in any country to be a pro-business government. I think we have this in Cyprus. We have a pro-business government for some years now. Incentives were put in place in order to attract foreign direct investment, which apply also to the fintechs. And actually, initially, they were only targeted for the technology sector in the beginning, early enough. But now it's expanded also to other sectors of the economy. So first, it's a pro-business government that needs to have open doors to the investors, to the foreign investors. We, as Invest Cyprus, and the concept that we pass is that investors are clients of Cyprus. Of course, we don't charge any money as Invest Cyprus, clients' codes, but they are the ones that are contributing, taking the risk, employing thousands of people, creating more jobs for Cyprus and developing not only Cyprus, but the region indirectly in the technology and fintech cluster. We are in Limassol, where you have some of the most successful tech and fintech companies operating. We have a very strong organization in the technology industry in Cyprus, TechIsland, which is also mapping the startups. It's talking to the government. The government is always open, also to other associations and tech clusters. And I would like to say that the suggestions that the cluster is making, the fintech cluster or the foreign investors from any cluster, are being taken very seriously by the government. We have this mandate to ask.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to interrupt. What are the actual tools?
The tools.
Practically.
The practical tools is whenever there is a problem, an issue, you need to raise your voice and you need to document it and send it either directly to the ministry involved, whatever ministry is, or to Invest Cyprus. It's our role. And I will ask here again, and I mentioned in the morning, we are open to suggestions. Right now, we are doing a survey of foreign investors in Cyprus. It already has been sent to companies. I kindly ask the companies to complete, because this survey is very important to get and crystallize what are the top 10 things that we need to do in order to further enhance the investment environment. Practically, whenever we have a very serious suggestion, we study it, we analyze it, we send it to the relevant ministries that are concerned, and then a regulation is issued, or the minister's cabinet is taking a decision on that issue. These are practical, very practical measures that we contribute and we help for things to change for the better, for the foreign investment.
A little birdie told me about the platform as well.
About
the platform as well.
The platform. Now, in addition to that, to whatever exists here, the digitalization process has to fast forward, as was mentioned before. We are at 2023. We should be able to file applications online and not print, scan, and send back by email. So this thing needs to fast forward, at all levels of the government. And the government is aware of that and is working in that direction. The other thing that needs to be improved is, I believe, airline connectivity in some cities in Europe, for example, Brussels or Luxembourg, cannot, have one day wasted in literally in aeroplanes to go to Brussels. We need a direct flight to Brussels. There is a commitment, and it's being taken seriously. The President of the Republic is looking into these connectivities himself with the right ministry, and we are going to hopefully see some solutions in that respect with the airline connectivity. Regarding platforms and clusters for the startups and fintechs, we are taking initiatives, and as you might have seen, I can announce it is public information. The Euro-Mediterranean Investment Network, ANIMA, which is based in Marseille, France, has decided in its board decision in November last year to create in Cyprus the Euromed iHouse. What is this Euromed iHouse? This is a platform where startups from the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa, and Euromed region specifically, will be able to come and collaborate, have capacity building, access to funding, access to funds, in order to further increase the foreign direct investment flow between the countries of the Euromed and the European Union. So this is a new initiative that is taking place now, and we are going to see more of this. In addition to that, I'm sure the Deputy Ministry, the Chief Scientist, and the Research Innovation Foundation are providing programs with millions of euros into grants for startups. These are platforms, funding platforms. And speaking to the CEO of the Research Innovation Foundation a few days ago, he told me there is even funding for persons, for professionals, to do their PhDs or higher degrees while they are working fully funded from programs of the Research Innovation Foundation, in addition to what is being granted to startups. We have 6 incubators, accelerators in Cyprus that are actually providing and doing a lot of work, in producing, let's say, companies and helping them to grow, dealing internationally, so with many countries. So in a way, the platforms and the environment is here, but it needs to grow faster. It needs to be enriched and also supported more efficiently from the different bodies that need to support it.
Thank you, Marios. This is very helpful. I'll come back to you as well. And I'll now go to Nikolas, because based on that, I'll give it to Nikolas to get his opinion on the following. Do you actually feel that, because you're in the industry for many years and you're running a very successful company in terms of regulatory approaches, you have been dealing with many foreign investors, so do you think that Cyprus and the region has actually implemented a progressive and supportive regulatory environment for fintech companies? And if so, why? Why do you believe that? And how do you envision Cyprus contributing to the global fintech landscape? And what role does regulatory compliance play in nurturing this ecosystem? It's a long question, I know.
To start from what Mario said and from your question, I know for a fact that Invest Cyprus doors are open, because I have reached out for a number of projects, and we met and we discussed. Not everything can be done, but for sure, our experience with Invest Cyprus is that it is transparent, it is open, it is approachable, and it is effective. because we have had successes. Now, Cyprus and the region. Cyprus is I mean, listening to Nasir and also to Alexey mentioned Greece, mentioned Luxembourg, we live in a world that we don't need one recipe to succeed. And I don't know if anyone has a question here as to whether Cyprus is succeeding. Cyprus is succeeding, Luxembourg is succeeding, and Greece, as I know, is succeeding as well, following different combination of things. Now, the regulatory environment, and when we say regulatory environment, we're talking about services that require an authorization. This can be investment services, it can be payment services, this can be crypto asset services. In the last 10 years, and more so in the last 3 years, the regulation around the region and in Cyprus in particular has stepped up. The most dominant regulation around the world at the moment when it comes to cryptos is MiCA, and it's a European regulation that CySEC has embraced with their own crypto asset services providers regulation. But not only that, when we're dealing with the Central Bank of Cyprus when it comes to payment services, or the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission when it comes to investment services, we don't see that we're dealing with, and don't take me wrong, with dry bureaucrats. We're seeing that we're talking to people that understand the reality of the market. They understand what a piece of regulation means in real terms for them, for the regulated entities to operate. And in a way, I see that we are entering a period where, especially for Cyprus, the attraction of fintechs have been so, let's say, phenomenal for many reasons, that nobody has a room to drop their performance, their level, and this includes the regulators. So progressive, yes. Still, going back to a question I had here a year ago, progressive, yes, but a year ago I was asked whether a regulator shall be a leader or a follower, and I said a regulator must be a very good follower, definitely not a leader, because you need to give the entrepreneur, the startup, the fintech, some room to run ahead, but be close and catch up, because you need to keep things within a framework.
Sure, and I have to say that we see very quick steps from regulators on that one. Like we see that CySEC's Innovation Hub, Central Bank's Innovation Hub are excellent initiatives. And
Central Bank has really stepped up their game. CySEC led that wave. But yeah, definitely progressive, not leading, and I don't believe they should be leading.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you so much, Nikolas. And also now, Yuriy, I come to you now. I mean, another big question for you. It's going to be a long one. Brace yourself. So again, 2023 is seen as the year of the investors, rather than the year of fintech founders. Truth or not, this is what it's seen to be. So how can fintechs access banks, venture capital firms, and angel investors in a more efficient way? That's part number one. And part two of the question is actually how can investors ensure that what they're investing in is indeed what is presented to them? So where is what is your opinion in terms on the due diligence startup process? How has it been evolved in 2023 in comparison with previous years? And when you finish that, I want to hear about the strategies that can be followed on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It will be maybe extremely informative answer, because the reality that we have right now, it's completely different that we have several years ago. Comparing to this number, just to give you figures, like, if we're talking about the public listed companies in 2021, it was around 700 billion that were tracked to these companies for just 12 months. If we're talking about the same stream in 2022, with, of course, the agenda of the war and all this impact with financial crisis, we have a number of 60 billion. So the deviations completely change the landscape of the capital that had been attracted for the public markets. We've seen, of course, great examples of the trends like AI that continuously change the environment and, of course, pushing forward fintech agenda as well. But if we're talking about the venture capital attractiveness for the startups, specifically in Cyprus, it will be hard. It will be a hard challenge. If you are startup founders and you have issues with raising funding last year or this year, brace yourself. Next year will be even harder. We're not taking the things that's happening right now as something that crucial, because the reality will be different in next 6 or 8 months, because it will be like bloodbath with the founders that are trying to raise the money. And why, you will ask me about that? Because there is plenty of example of companies that trying to secure the funding round at the beginning of the war for 24 months. And the next year, in March, we'll hit this number of 24 months that been already happening. If we're talking about, of course, the venture capital, the biggest impact is been driven to the growth stage companies. The growth stage companies trading their valuation have a down rounds, and what we've seen right now this year, that's like an example. In 2021, company can raise easily growth stage funding round with multiply of 10, 20x to the IRR. It will easily done, even with not so sophisticated traction numbers or break even. Right now we're talking about the numbers like 3 to 5x to IRR. That's for the growth stage. And these exactly the circumstances that we face right now, it's not just Cyprus, it's globally condition of the market. What we have right now as the flow of opportunity, it's early stage. Because what we've seen with AI and ChatGPT, that adoption of the AI is very fast. How fast OpenAI reached the goal of 100 million users, that's answer on the technology part, how fast it can go further, because literally everyone in this room are ready to use some AI tool that help and justify their input to the most fast format of working. And of course, if we are talking about investment, it's very important to understand that we heard this facilitation from the government for the VCs, but specifically what we need to focus on right now, it's angel investment, because that's the first pillar that will secure all of this technology and innovation that will go to the market. And so if we're talking about angel investment, this continuously trend this year, it's a crowdfunding, like ICLUB. With ICLUB, we have over than 120 members from Cyprus. They are not only multi-billionaires. They are just sometimes employees that have money to invest. And of course, if we're talking about how we can push this further, it's just seamless and clear understanding of how they can do that. All the questions that they can raise is about taxation, about how they can be treated, and how they can, for example, get some initiative from the government to facilitate this track. This will be great as well. But what I see now, that early stages, it's very rapidly developing, because what we as an investor see right now, that valuation for early stage also dropped. And that's good news for us, because we can track and identify great companies. We can build the competition around the startups for the funding raising and for the money from VCs. And of course, facilitate this track for our members, for our angel investors. As an iClub, of course, we have all the due diligence process been done for these type of investors, and we want to speed up this process as far as possible, because the more angel investors will focus in on these companies, the more successful examples of the traction build results we will get even in Cyprus as well. And if we're talking about the due diligence process, I would like to highlight that specifically for fintech and Web 3.0 companies, everyone in the audience will understand, because the tokenization rounds that have been raised before, several years ago, right now it's even not considered by any kind of VC, because there is a lot of threat about fraud, etc. from the Web 3.0. What we have as a solution is only focusing with the Web 3 on traction and adaptation of your product, not just idea. about something, but like, how far you can go with your product. And to founders, of course, my suggestion is this year, do not spend time for just a fundraising process, because it will take you time, it will give you a lot of stress, it will, like, take your focus from the product development to some sort of idea of financial success of your product. But the more important right now is to build a relation with your customers. Because again, if we're talking about your competitors, like, friends, founders, like, customers, these people are ideal, like, angel investors to your project as well. So treat them well, build a good relation, meaningful relation, long-term relation, ask the advice, help them, like, to use your product in a way that they feel the value, and then, like, brace yourself, like, for the good condition of your first or second funding round. And very also important to maybe facilitate on this discussion that there is plenty of examples of companies that right now raising a down round. They have secured some sort of safe funding round, convertible notes round, but all of that, it will come with a price, because, like, you will see in the next 24, 36 months that this company will probably have nothing to offer to investor because their cap table is completely vanished from the founder's perspective. So my, like, highlight here, please focus in on angel investors, please treat your customers well, and know exactly how your product bring them value. So that's very important.
Thank you so much. And please.
Just because we speak about Luxembourg, like, I would like just, if you allow me, to make a small comparison about Luxembourg and Cyprus. Why? Because I know Luxembourg a lot. I bought my first company in Luxembourg in 2012. In 2013, actually, I moved one of my holding company to Luxembourg. And till actually a few months ago, I was have office in Luxembourg. Like, what I like from Luxembourg, when I come there to move my holding and when I bought a company, basically first day I meet 3 ministers, and this too. What he's saying is not like it's not a lie. I mean, it's really a story. Like, I mean, when I tell that I need visas for employees, basically I get them in 1 week, and this really approach. Like, I was working with Peter. I don't remember his surname. Like, it was Peter working in the government at that time, and. Luxembourg is really good to adapt something because they're really fighting to get a business. And they was telling me at that time the story of PayPal, and they changed the legislation for PayPal to able to actually open office in Luxembourg, get banking license with the avoid limitation about KYC procedures. And this story was a long time ago, like we're speaking about 10 years ago. And Luxembourg is quite good on things, but because I was have office there as well, like I can tell you, like, but cost for some stuff is dramatical. Like, I mean, you cannot actually, as a startup, afford to have developers there because developers getting very high salary, very high income, and it's really hard to go there. Like, look, Cyprus in this way a little bit much more attractive in terms of cost saving. But what I would like to say, like, if you allow me, about one important thing, which is, I believe, is a problem for any fintech startups in Cyprus. And the biggest problem is access to the banking system. This is because here I believe many companies have MEI license or some license from, but if you payment institution, I believe none of them have bank account in Cyprus. Maybe one, which I know, like, I mean, and the reason because Hellenic Bank, Bank of Cyprus, Eurobank, nobody willing to accept them as a customers. And this is actually the big stop driver of the growing of this business in Cyprus. Because now you are getting a MEI license, you're going to Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Luxembourg, sometimes Liechtenstein, where you're actually getting banking facilities. Because local banks don't have the clear understanding about this business, they only start to looking on that, on this direction. And what should be done really is to, if you have a fintech company, you have to actually have ability to have banking in the same country, which is not happening now.
Thank you. That's a very important point, actually. Thank you. So I'll take it as a suggestion to Marios to take it forward, because we do have a good representative of Invest Cyprus here, yes, and I'm sure it will be noted.
In fact, the banking sector in Cyprus has faced in the past several, as we know, challenges. We know that the banks are healthy now. They are progressing, and they are innovating also. What needs to be done, though, on the matter of startups, yes, we have an issue, because it's not easy, like Alexey said, to possibly get this funding, this loan, in order to be able to proceed. It is indeed maybe easier in other countries, as mentioned. But the banks are trying to innovate themselves. They trying to also work with some fintechs, and it's important to come close together, you know, and find joint projects. We, as Invest Cyprus, we have a direct relation with the banks in order to convey the messages that sometimes the investors, tell us, and we have frequent meetings, and in each meeting we can see the progress documented, you know, from their side. And it's true that they have done.
I'll take it from, because on this point, why? Yeah. Because you've touched a very, 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 very important point here. So we all know, like, the higher the risk, the highest return, etc. So we understand where the systemic banks are coming from, and it's quite natural. But I'll also pass it to Nikolas on this one, because it's more like, where is the right balance? Like, how can startups strike the right balance between innovation and regulatory compliance? For example, we see a totally different risk appetite in banks, which is very natural. But for startups, though, of course they will take some risks, it goes without saying, because they need to try their limits. They need to see where is the right balance, Nikolas? What's your opinion on that, based on your expertise?
A small side note, I agree 100% with what you said. At the same time, I know it is a journey for our banks in Cyprus, because they have been traumatized. But your voice here, it's part of a gentle push that is needed publicly to tell them, okay, enough is enough. We've been through that. We are healthy, as Mario said, and they should become more open. The balance between startups and regulatory compliance.
And you do have 60 seconds, because I really have to close the panel.
Okay, so
thank you.
Last night I received an email that many people in the audience probably received as well. The email was from Revolut, and they said that they're going to be complying, as of today, they're going to be complying with the travel rule for their crypto transfers, crypto deposits, and withdrawals. And they're going to be using a service or a provider called something, I don't remember everything, but it was an acronym that stood for trust. Yep. Okay, so adding on to what Yuriy said, that this year maybe you shouldn't go around trying to raise capital. You should focus on building a customer relationship. If you can survive, because the life of a startup is harsh, if you can survive, you should really pay attention to building a loyal customer base, to establishing trust. There are many ways to do that. But it is not an understatement to say that if you want to survive in the long term, you need to establish trust. So it is a balancing act because of the profitability aspect, and you need to take some risks. You need to push the barriers, but you cannot do that at the expense of trust.
So we can sum it up in 2 words: stay away from systemic risks and ensure consumer protection.
Consumer protection for sure. Systemic risks, sometimes you don't have a choice, but yeah, if you can do that, do that. And maybe you can mitigate your risks. I mean, some risks you have to take.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing panel. I wish I had 1 more hour to continue this discussion. There are so many things we haven't touched upon yet, but unfortunately, we'll have to close it for today. I will summarize our discussion on the fact that we have noted that For a country to position itself as a leading hub for fintech innovation needs a combination of financial infrastructure, favorable regulations, strong academia industry ties, access to capital, good flight connectivity, but Mario said this will be resolved. It's already in the agenda. International connectivity, a vibrant fintech community, and we have also discussed about the path for Cyprus and the region and what it takes to foster a vibrant ecosystem for fintech startups. Thank you all. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you for being with us and touching this topic, and I really do wish to have more time next time to discuss it even further. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.